Part of this is Boris's fault because he created a cabinet of people who were not a threat to him. He deliberately surrounded himself by people who wouldn't upstage him, people who weren't a threat to him.
And this presidential style that we've heard about.
And this presidential style, he wanted to be this big sort of Jupiter figure which sort of had all the attention on him and on no one else. The problem is that led to bad governance, it led to bad policy, it led to a lot of scandals and a lot of issues within his government, which eventually brought him down. So his idea to not create threats around him actually was the threat.
Could I just put this to you? Many of the ministers and MPs decided they couldn't cope with him any longer because they thought he would lose them the next general election. What's changed amongst these, well, 10,000, how many, who think it's a good idea to get him back before what will be a general election, perhaps in 18 months or even shorter?
Yeah, I think it's seeing the other options, the circus of the recent leadership contest, the people who stood up. You know, there were a couple of candidates who got the grassroots attention, people like Kemi Badenoch, Suella Braverman, Penny Mordaunt to some degree, but she sort of crashed and burned after a couple of days. But I think seeing that process play out, people have gone, actually, Boris wasn't all that bad when you look at who's going to replace him.
Norman, I'm just wondering what the other candidates who've been bumped off would make of it in terms of just basic democracy. Well, that Boris comes back in as a sort of shoo-in.
Well, Boris doesn't always adhere to the rules of democracy. Part of the problems that have occurred. But, I mean, look, there is a process. It's not my process, it's the Tory party process, that you can't stand again if you resign. John Major resigned in 1985, I think it was, and you stood again to be Tory party leader and was re-elected. I think he was... I don't know if he was challenged at that point or wasn't challenged, but anyway, he got re-elected. Yeah. So Boris could have put himself forward. He could have done that if he wanted to do that, as opposed to confidence. Could he not do that?
No, the party constitution changed last year.
Oh, right.
And it changed.
Oh, that was handy.
Two key things changed, which really messed up this contest. The first is that the Prime Minister can't stand if he's outgoing. And the other thing was that Lords can't run. So someone like Lord Frost, who would have had a lot of popular support because he resigned early on, he didn't resign when it was opportune, when he had a chance to run for leader like Rishi Sunak.
Well, let's stay with the technical aspect, because the other thing I've got to flag up is we've got the Privileges Committee and a hearing that basically could mean that he's broken parliamentary law by allegedly not being perhaps 100% accurate with the truth on Partygate, we put it that way. That would mean he's out the door.
But yeah, perhaps, and this is the thing, you know, whether he comes back or not, whether he's popular or not, he has got quite a few skeletons in his closet. But if he were, the real question is, if he were on the ballot next to Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss, would he win the membership vote? I think he actually would. I think he'd have a very good shot, in spite of Partygate, in spite of everything else. I think that he still would remain more popular than Rishi Sunak or Liz Truss.